Hey everyone, it's good to see you. I have an exciting new video series here ahead of us. I'm going to be completely rebuilding this Sherman auxiliary transmission for a Ford tractor. This is going to be basically part one. I'm going to be dismantling this entire transmission, rebuilding it, and then part two is going to be the installation into a 1948 Ford 8N tractor. Now, if you've done any kind of research on the Sherman transmissions, you'll know that there are a few different kinds of Sherman transmissions. This particular one is a high and low range, or a combination, or combo for short. There are several different kinds I won't get into right now, but if you do research, and you'll find out that these things can be quite expensive, especially if they've been rebuilt or they are known to be good. Unfortunately, there are a lot of ones out there on the market that you might see on eBay or Craigslist, Marketplace, wherever, that are being sold as good, but there's also a lot of things that could be wrong with it. And I just want to strip it down, go in detail, part by part, what to look for so you don't get burned, and hopefully you'll have a nice, smooth, quiet operating Sherman transmission that shifts nice, doesn't pop out of gear, and it'll be good for many, many years. So let's get started and dive in. So the first thing to check out is this gear right here. This is your output shaft. The shaft that is running through the top part of the transmission and this gear are all one piece. This is machined to accept the bearing from your transmission of the tractor. It rides right in here. There is no bearing race in here. If this is scored or pitted or damaged in any way, it cannot be replaced. If it is, you would have to junk the entire shaft. Now, fortunately, they do make a brand new shaft. They're around $220, $225, depending on where you get it, which is very helpful because these things are, everything's old now. We're talking 60 plus years old. So it's really nice when you can find a good one. This particular one here, I would say it's about 99% good. There is some very, very few pits in here. My rule of thumb is if I can rub my finger over it with my eyes closed and not feel anything, it will probably be okay. However, we're not out of the woods yet. There is something we want to check inside the transmission on the shaft that is known for wear. But right now everything's looking good on this end. Coming up to the front, you have your input shaft. This is the part that goes into the clutch of your tractor. You always want to make sure this area right here is not scored. It's nice and smooth. This will actually go into the pilot bushing of your flywheel. A lot of times if that bushing, or I should say bearing, fails, you'll get this all scored up. Also, make sure that your splines are nice and square and not abnormal wear or look like they're getting ready to strip. This looks like it's in excellent shape. I'm going to go ahead and remove the top shifter assembly on this. There is a problem with this that I'm aware of. It does not want to stay in gear. So there's actually a whole lot going on here that I want to discuss a little bit later in depth. So I'm going to set this to the side for now, and we're going to focus on the internal gears here. Now we're getting into the nitty-gritty. As you look down in after taking that top cover off, you want to inspect all of the teeth on the gears. Everything is looking really, really good here. Let me explain some. This is your input shaft gear. This is called a shift collar. When this shift collar goes forward and actually goes inside of that gear, the input shaft gear, that would be kind of like locked out, or you'd just be using the standard transmission of your tractor. This isn't high range or low range. It is just your normal gear ratios of your transmission. Down in there, that is called a spline sleeve. This is your step up gear, and then this is another shift collar. When this shift collar goes forward, you would be in high range. When it goes back and goes inside of the step down gear, which is right here, naturally you would be in low range. Now all these sleeves and shift collars, they all have these little teeth. You want to inspect every one of them, make sure none of them are all chewed up. Generally, if one's chewed up, they're all going to be chewed up. That happens when somebody has been trying to, through the years, shift it while on the move. That is not a good idea. These Sherman transmissions have a pretty good reputation of being durable. Unfortunately, they're not idiot-proof. So you want to inspect all the teeth there. Everything here is looking really, really good so far. I am happy. So I am going to remove now the input shaft, and I'm going to remove all these gears, and you'll be able to see even more parts that you can't see right now. Okay, that's off. Here is a little roller bearing. I'll set that up in there for now. There is a large bearing in here that is pressed into this housing. It is also held by 3 set screws. This particular one for some reason is missing them, but that's no problem. I got new ones. There is also a oil seal in here that will need taken out and replaced. But I'm just going to set this whole thing to the side when I go ahead and put it in the shop press, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. All I got to basically do now is start taking all this stuff off. Here is a thrust washer. There is a snap ring right here. I'm going to take that out, and all these parts are just going to fall right off. If you remember at the beginning of the video, I talked about how it is important to make sure that there's no pits or scoring inside that gear because it can't be replaced. You'd have to replace the whole shaft. There is also a place right here. I don't know if you can see it. If the light hits it just right, there's like a wear mark. That is right where the step-up gear or the high gear would ride, and it would be right about right there. Generally, you don't want any more than like 0.003 wear on these. If you do, the gear will start to wobble, it will growl, make a little bit of noise, and then also you'll just prematurely wear out the teeth on the gear. I go ahead and you can get a digital caliper or a micrometer, measure the top of where that gear is, measure the bottom, and then right where the gear is to see how much wear you have. Like I said, I'm right on the verge of being not okay. I'd probably be okay, but I went ahead and bit the bullet and got a brand new shaft. When I go ahead and reassemble this, don't worry, I'm going to say where I got all the parts. I know people are going to ask me. I'm going to give you names, numbers, websites, whatever can be helpful. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of parts available. These gears and sleeves and stuff in front of me, you cannot buy new. You have to find, if you need one, you have to find somebody that's parting the stuff out. Other than that, the gaskets you can buy, bearings you can buy, some of the thrust washers you can buy, but I'm going to go into that a little bit more in detail when I go ahead and start putting it together. Alright, let's dive right back down into the case again. We have 3 more gears you can see down there. This is all one piece. This is called the cluster gears, or I call it the counter shaft. But anyhow, you want to make sure that all the teeth are in good shape, nothing abnormal going on. There is a shaft right here that you can see. To get these out, it must be driven this way. I'm going to put it in the shop press. There are thrust washers at both ends. You cannot buy these. I looked high and low. You used to be able to find them, but everywhere I called that sells Sherman parts had no idea why they don't make them anymore. But anyway, the side to side action here is so minimal that it's pretty much perfect. From what I gather, that most of the time they really don't wear out too much, fortunately. If you are in a position where it's not good, they're all beat up or something, my suggestion is take it to a machine shop and have somebody just make it. I'd take the whole shaft and everything. But I'm going to go ahead and set this transmission case in the shop press, and we're going to push all that out. Now that the counter shaft is out, you can see the thrust washers on either end. When you go inside here, you will push out a roller bearing on either end, and then there is a spacer in the center. Now let's take a better look at this shaft here. This is a pretty crucial part. This is exactly 1 inch diameter, and you can see by the discoloration right here on either end, that is where the bearings would have been rotating on. If this is any more than, say, like 3 or 4 thousandths wear, you might want to look into getting another one, or if there's pits or any kind of scoring, another reason to get another one. If there's more wear than what there should be, you're going to have a noise, and you can also damage your brand new bearings. A lot of times if you pull these out of the transmission and you see that these are crushed or broken in some way, I guarantee you the shaft is the culprit. That's what broke it. So this particular one, fortunately, I measured all around here. I'm only getting about 1 thousandths to 2 thousandths wear, and I think we're going to be safe with that. So I'm kind of relieved at that. We can just move on to the next step. Since I have the shop press going here, I'm just going to go ahead and start pressing some of these pieces apart. I'm trying not to talk too much because, well, there's really not a whole lot of excitement going on here, and I know my videos have a habit of being too long, but I like to explain everything best I can just in case there's any questions. What I'm going to be doing is just pushing out this shaft and the bearing. I'm going to be removing the bearing. There's a snap ring as well, and then there's also a oil seal in the housing here. And last but not least, the whole entire top shifting assembly. I took off earlier. I was saving this for the last. There's a lot going on here that I need to touch base on here. So first thing you want to look at is when you take these off is your forks here. You like to see like a nice rectangular shape here, okay? Slight wear here, nothing to really worry about. When it gets too bad, it will actually wear into the fork here, and that by then it would be junk. You'd have to replace it. You cannot buy new ones. You'd have to find old ones. So you can also see here, these are set screws. These are not your average set screw. I believe they're called dog head. I'll take them out here a little bit and show you. This one is broken. It was actually allowing this fork to just kind of float around. It wasn't staying in position, and that's why I was having a lot of shifting problems. I was also having shifting problems underneath these bolt caps. I'll take them off here in just a second. You'll have a spring and a ball. Those are called detent springs and balls. They are designed to hold the shaft in place when you go ahead and you shift it. It will lock it into gear. It won't jump out when you're pulling something with the tractor or going down a hill. This shifting was really flopsy, but when I took the one out, half the spring was only there, so the tension was non-existent where the other one was. So let me go ahead and take some of these pieces apart and let me get a better shot on this. So with those caps taken off, you saw me dump the springs and balls. These are called detent springs, detent balls. The sole purpose of them is to put tension. That ball will actually sit when I pull this shifter rail out. It will sit right into that groove. And when that cap's on, it creates a lot of tension. That tension is what actually helps keep it into gear. It kind of locks into there. And then when you shift it, it will kind of spring back up. Now the problem, I had a lot of slop in between high and low range, and this was the culprit. That spring should be the same length as that. Obviously there was not enough tension being forced onto that shifter rail, and it was just kind of flopping around. So I got brand new ones. There was only one place that I could find these. Again, like I said before in the videos, I'm going to give a parts list out here once I get everything cleaned up and spread out here. I'm going to go through that and give you guys where I got all my parts at. With them completely removed now, you can obviously see on the left hand side the issue, why the fork was just kind of flopping around, not staying in the spot that it's supposed to on the rail. These are known as dog point. When you have that tip like that, smooth, it is designed to fit into a notch in the shifting rail, and it is supposed to be able to move slightly. These are not meant to be cranked down and be tight. I'm willing to bet that somebody at some point in time that had this transmission apart got a little too crazy and it broke it. I don't know if you can tell, but this one is actually bent. Unfortunately, you cannot buy these exactly like these, especially with the hole. That hole is for wire. The wire goes through the bolt head there, and then there's another hole in the forks, and everything's wired together and keeps them from coming loose. It's kind of the old school way of doing things before Loctite, I guess. You cannot buy these exactly the same. I do have an alternative that's just going to work fine, and I will show you them when it comes time to putting everything back together. Next, we're going to look at this selector shaft right here, and this is the selector fork. There's a tiny woodruff key in there to prevent the fork to spin around on the shaft. It is a common wear item. That woodruff key causes
this to have a lot of slop. This does have some slop, not terrible, but you would definitely be able to feel it when you're shifting. There is a small snap ring right here that's going to need to come off. I'm going to put this in the press, and you first have to push it down this way, pop that cap off, put something underneath there, a socket or something, and then drive that down through to expose the Woodruff key. It's going to be hard to see in a video, but I'll do my best. Also, there is a crucial part that lies underneath this plug here that I'm taking out with a Allen wrench. This pin plays a very crucial role in the shifting of this transmission. It would be in between these two grooves of these shafts. Now, when you're moving and shifting these shafts, this pin will be bopping back and forth, and the whole purpose of that is to prevent the transmission from going into two gears at one time. You want to see a nice rounded edge, or end, I'm sorry, on each side. The one side here looks really good. However, the other side, I don't know if you can see that, but it is kind of developing a flat spot. That is an issue. So I am going to have to make my own. Unfortunately, once again, these are no longer available.
Well, there you have it. You just saw some of the last few components get disassembled. Now that we thoroughly inspected everything, I went ahead and cleaned everything up and have everything spread out here on the table just to give you an idea of just how many pieces are in one of these transmissions. As promised, I'm going to show you some of the new parts that I got for this rebuild, and I'm going to share where I got them from. Now, like I've said several times before, most of the parts in this transmission are not available new. If you would need anything major, you're going to have to find somebody who's parting one out, or you're going to have to make it yourself, and if you can't make it, then you're going to have a machine shop do it.
There are a few companies that offer a complete rebuild kit. However, I would not use the word complete. They are missing a few things that I feel should be in there, but they aren't being made for whatever reason. However, I got the kit at Red Rock Manufacturing Company. It's out of Iowa. Real nice guy to deal with. I've bought things from him in the past through the years. It comes with all the new bearings, new bearing race, thrust washer, grommet, couple gaskets, almost everything you need. Unfortunately, it did not come with the detent springs. It came with the balls, but not the springs. But I was able to find the springs at walterstractor.com. They are out of Missouri. It was the only company that I found with these springs. And as you can see in the picture, there's also a little Woodruff key. That did not come from Walters. That just came from here local at a mom and pop hardware store not too far from me. Nothing real special there. Let's see, McMaster car. I got the new set screws for the shifting forks there. I also went ahead and got a 5/16 rod that it's also hardened steel, that I'm going to make the pin that keeps the transmission from going into two gears at one time. I wanted something hard. A lot of the stuff that you buy maybe off the shelf at a hardware store or something, it might be too soft, so I didn't want to take any chances with that. Also, at the beginning of the video, I showed where 3 set screws were located in the input shaft. Actually holds the input shaft bearing in place. They were missing for whatever reason, but I did find some 3/4 inch set screws. I got them from albanycountyfasteners.com. No real reason other than this company allows you to buy what you need as far as the number goes. Some companies will make you buy 25 or 50 at a time, and I'll never need them, so I just went ahead and bought from them and was able to get 3. And last but not least, the brand new output shaft. Walters tractors actually sell these, but at the time of this video they did not have any in stock, and they told me about Cross Creek Tractor Company. They're out of Alabama. I never dealt with them before, but I called them up real nice, and they sent me a brand new output shaft. They said they had 96 in stock at the time, so hopefully they'll have them for quite a while. And that's everything that I got. Everything is brand new. We're ready to get rolling. Let's not waste one more minute. We're going to go ahead and start reassembling. Since we ended with the shifter assembly, we're going to start with it. Okay. Before I go ahead and slide the other shifter rail and fork in, I want to put this pin in that I just made that you just saw in the video. I went ahead and put it in the drill press, and then I held a real fine stone up to it with a Dremel tool, and it worked out really well. Really pleased. I actually had it all together to test it, and it's working flawlessly. So I'm going to drop that down into the hole, put the plug back in, and we can continue. I'm getting ready to install the new dog point set screws, or these are now going to be put in with an Allen wrench. The originals, like I showed before, are no longer available. They used wire to hold them in place so they wouldn't come loose. I'm now going to be able to use red Loctite to hold them in place instead of wire. It is important that you do not put these in and screw them down tight. You're basically going to put them in. As soon as it makes contact, you're just going to back them out just a little bit. That is because these shafts are actually rotating when you go and shift. They rotate so they don't wear out in one place with the detent balls and the other pin. We're going to go ahead and put the counter shaft in. I'm going to go ahead and grease all the new bearings and the shaft and everything. This helps keep everything together when you drop it down into the case. It's a little bit of a struggle. It's kind of takes some patience to get everything together, especially holding these thrust washers in. I'm going to go ahead and put some grease on the outer end here. It'll kind of glue them in place. I'm going to save you from watching some of the struggle here, but this grease will help hold everything somewhat together. I'm going to go ahead and push the shaft in with the shop press. It's a pressed fit. While it is in there, I'm going to go ahead and also press in the new bearing race into place. As you can see, it is now in place. I think I failed to mention before with these thrust washers, I know I mentioned that you cannot buy them. You do not want any more than 25 thousandths of end play. And no less than 5 thousandths. We're at about 15 thousandths here, so we're good. We don't need to worry about that. It's got plenty of wear left. Next, we can go ahead and replace the oil seal for the input shaft. It always comes up on the internet a question of which way does an oil seal go. You'll have an opening, and you can even see a spring inside of there most of the time. That opening, you always want to have it facing towards the oil. So in here in this housing, it's going to go down in here. It'll be sitting like this. The oil would be in here where your gears are. So you would want that opening to actually be facing upward when you go ahead and press it in there. Now that the input shaft has been pressed into the housing, we're going to go ahead and use these brand new set screws. These are coned. Notice the point. They have to be a coned or a point because this point will actually go just over top of the bearing and hold it in place when you go ahead and put them down into these holes. It's important that you do not over tighten these. You could possibly damage the bearing, but go ahead and screw them all the way down in, firm but not too crazy. I'm going to go ahead and press the new bearing onto the brand new output shaft, and I'm not going to show that just to save some time for the video, but you want to put your slinger, oil slinger on. I'll talk a little bit more about that when I go to actually put it on the tractor. And then you're going to put the bearing, you want to press that down on the whole way till it's making contact and flat, and then a brand new thrust washer on top of that. We can go ahead and start assembling the main shaft. I have the brand new output shaft with the bearing pressed on. This is low gear. I'm going to slide that on first. Then you have a long spline sleeve. There is a short one, but that goes on the front. This is the long one. You want to put that on. Then you have a
shifting collar. You want to slide that on next. The teeth will go inside of the low gear. Then you'll have next your high gear. Again, your teeth will want to be facing this direction. Here is the short spline sleeve. Then we have another shifting collar. This time the teeth are going to face that way. And then we have a snap ring, and then a thrust washer, and then a new needle bearing that's going to go on the end here. When you're ready to put your input shaft on, you want to see this slot here in the casting. You want that facing down. That is for oil to drip if your seal should fail. That way it will not travel out down the splines and into your clutch disc and cause it to slip. You're going to have to jiggle it a little bit and work its way in. We now have a fully rebuilt Sherman transmission. I don't know if any of you caught it, but I did not put the gaskets on the top or on the input shaft housing. There is a reason for that. I'm going to be, when I go to install this in the tractor, I need to have this off so I can set the bearing preload. You also need a mounting plate that's going to go on the back, and there's going to be shims. I'm going to cover all that in the next video when I go ahead and actually install this into a 1948 48N tractor. I hope this sheds some light on a lot of the questions about these transmissions. If you have any questions or comments, please feel to write them down below and I will get back to you. Other than that, thanks for watching and I hope to see you in the next video.